At the bottom of the first page, this was again something that I think I'd overlooked. It says schools are not required schools are not required by law to teach the example content in square brackets.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what was the intention for including those examples in the program of study?
It was exactly that. There were examples, and that's it. Otherwise, you've got a closed statement, haven't you? And it was again, to go back to the what, why and how, it was to give, rather than giving schemes of work and projects, it was to give staff the opportunity to say, well, we can do this year, but maybe we'll do that. It wasn't prescriptive, it wasn't meant to be. And actually I had to fight quite hard for that, because it was going to be, you have to cover X, Y and Z. So that's why it's in those, because I didn't understand that kind of terminology. I've never come across them before. So it's just to give some flexibility in what you do. And I think the whole point of the curriculum, the program study, the thing that I would say more than anything is you do not, and I've said it once already, but I'll keep saying it, you don't have to cover everything. You can't. It's an impossibility. What you do have to do is don't let the tail wag the dog. What you've got to do is come up with your ideas, your schemes, your projects, your assignments in whatever way you want to. You know, one of the things that I like to see is something that we'll do in one lesson. There's all sorts of ways of doing things, but not to become bound by those words.
Thank you. When we first spoke, we mentioned earlier, actually, in this recording, that locality was something that really kind of maybe passed us by a little bit, and you've spoken a little bit about locality. But what did you feel was the kind of specific intention around having localized study of D&T over the idea of looking more broadly to international designers and global movements and so on? Why was locality so important to this program of study? Because
the students live in the locality. Yes, they've got access to, social media, they've got access to the internet, so there's a bigger world out there. But their day-to-day life is around the locality. And what we tried to do there was to look at, as I've said before, the wants and needs of local people. For instance, I had somebody who ran a shop, one of my students who ran a shop, who wanted to use recyclable materials in their packaging. But they also wanted it to be original. So they asked us to come up with a series of lino cuts that they could print onto their bags, so that every bag was slightly different, because lino cuts do that. And therefore their branding was slightly different, but it was a localized and contextual design project. So you could easily bring in then all stuff to do with prints and different movements to do with prints, etc. And to do with printing, and obviously the skill and technique of lino cutting, which can be incredibly dangerous, or it can be very, very safe. It depends on whether they listen and they don't cut towards themselves, which one always does. Anyway, so the whole point about the locality and local needs is to also look at what people need. So in other words, rather than somebody coming to you, the team can actually design technology, can say, what can we do for you? Here you've got a centre for, again, because I've worked as a volunteering one, adults with severe learning difficulties. How can we design an X to fulfil that need? That then, and this is how it all works, that then generates publicity, it generates goodwill, it generates the raising of profile within the school, because you know as well as I do, you get good publicity and they're all down there, aren't they? Oh, that was real. And you get press and you get coverage and all that. It's good for everybody, but it's really good for the students because they're seeing something different. It's not the classroom. And, it's one of the things that is so important, that schools are like ants' nests and beehives. What goes on in a school is kind of intense, but there's a whole world out there that is going on whilst you're learning. And getting them involved in the outer world, at times, not all the time, I think is really important for everybody. I hope that answers
Well,
your question.
it does answer the question, and I see part of how D&T is meant to be experienced through other subjects. So, for example, there's no point asking a child to learn French and talk about a visit to a ski resort if they've never left their postcode. So it's all about localized study, localized understanding. I always thought that at primary school, designing for your home, your garden, some kind of public space like a shopping centre, etc., they've got a lived experience, so it becomes more natural, doesn't it, to actually design for those rather than trying to imagine somewhere that they've never been, never visited, and don't have that lived experience.